This is called on pretty quick notice, so we have representatives from the City Council, David Alvarez. We have representatives from the MEA, is that right?
Yes, President
And POA. Anybody from other labor unions? And representing our negotiating team is Scott Chadwick, who's our interim chief operations officer. And I'm sorry. Who's here from? I can't see. Is that Jamie? I'm sorry, I didn't see. Jamie from Council President Todd Glory's office here. Thank you, Jamie. I'll get. Let me just first say we are incredibly pleased to announce a tentative agreement on a 5-year deal with our 6 labor unions, between the City Council and the labor unions. It was a tough process getting here. I want to thank our negotiating team, led by Scott and Tim Davis, who got out of town quick today. Tim, especially, our lead negotiator, spent an incredible amount of time at. There were times in this process where we seemed to hit a dead end, or what do we want to call it? A brick road, where council was split, union was split from the councils, the unions were split from the council, and Tim spent hours and hours and hours on the phone trying to make us get back to the table at various times when we had almost given up. David Typical was a great mediator. We thank you for making sure all of us kept talking at times again when it seemed like we had come to an impasse. So the basic part of the deal, or the important part of the deal, and I'm going to come back to it, is a 5-year labor agreement. That is, although there are reopener clauses for compensation in the 4th and 5th years, we have agreed on a 5-year package, which I think the council, the mayor, and the labor unions, all of whom had different opinions on Proposition B that passed, basically have said that because the voters did vote for a 5-year pensionable pay freeze, although it was not clear that either Prop B would deliver that, because it said there shall be annual proposals and not a 5-year offer, and there was no guarantee there'd be a 5-year pensionable pay freeze. And although Proposition B is in legal limbo, and Prop B may never take effect, we thought it was important that the $1 billion savings that was promised from a 5-year pensionable pay freeze would in fact be delivered, because, and the unions understood this, I think, that a 5-year deal with our budget projections more favorable in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th years would allow certain pensionable pay, non-pensionable pay increases that could not be delivered 1 year at a time. That is, if we just had a 1-year deal, we would probably come to zero. A 5-year deal gives us a chance for employees to recover the 6% that we had asked to be taken away, and to make further increases in non-pensionable pay, which would include, for example, their health benefits. So the basic structure of the deal is as follows. It's a little bit complicated because there's 3 different structures. AFSCME and MEA and did we give out any things with this? This will all be in writing for you. AFSCME, MEA, and the district attorneys will be getting a 1 3/4 pay compensation increase in each of the first 3 years of the deal, 2014, 15, 16, with guaranteed reopener on compensation in the 4th and 5th years. The POA, the police officers, will get a 2% 1 year, first year, 1% second year, 2% third year, for a 5% over the 3 years. but a guaranteed 1% in the fourth and each of the fourth and fifth years, when there are reopeners, they will get a guaranteed 1%. There is no guarantee in the other contracts for that. The firefighters and the lifeguards have a 2.25 first year, and then a 1, and then 2 like the police officers, with no guarantees in the fourth and fifth years. So, just in summary, 5 of the 6 have a 5.25% increase over the first 3 years with guaranteed reopeners, but no guarantees of any results of that. And the POA has a 5% over the 3 years with a guaranteed 2% in the last fourth and fifth years. Is that right, Mr.? Where's my financial manager back there? Okay. Now, the key part of this, though, is the 5-year operation, or the 5-year agreement. Because not only do we have, of course, stability and I'll say labor peace for 5 years, not only do we don't have to pay our negotiator for those years, not only do we have to get together in closed session every week for months and months to talk about it. Most important, though, is that we have delivered on the promise of Prop B, and because of that, the calculation of the pension payment that the city has to make is now being recalculated by the San Diego CERS board, the retirement board, and it appears that a new calculation will allow us to save almost $60 million over the 3 years, the first 3 years of this contract. That is $60 million because of a recalculation based on the stability of the 5-year. That is, all the retirement projections are based on just that, projections. But we have given them a certainty here of X percent over a number of years. That means they can calculate with certainty the amount that our annual payment is, and we have lowered that by $60 million over 3 years. That's an incredible amount of money in our budget. That allows us to do things for employees. It allows us, like, to end the furloughs that were imposed. It allows us to add things to our budget, like certain positions that we've added. It allows us to have a more optimistic view. We have more money for pothole repair than we've ever had in our history. It is that 5-year stability as it translates into a reduced pension payment that is really at the heart of why most of some of us pressed so hard, including the members represented in this room, for a 5-year deal. It was at $60 million. It's not free money, but it gives us money in the budget that we don't have to use for our retirement payments. And that was why we pressed so hard for the 5-year. That's why the labor unions came to agree with us. They understood that the additional money could be used, in fact, for compensation increases and for giving employees a sense that there's light at the end of the tunnel in terms of their sacrifices. And we have to stress, we've had 6-7 years with no employee pay increases. Cuts that imposed furloughs, cuts that took away from their paychecks each pay period. They have suffered a great deal, and we have tried to say the corner has been turned here. A 5-year deal gives them some improvement with openers that if our budget projections are sound and if our revenue increases turn out to be true, we will be able to do more for them in years 4 and 5. David, thank you for everything you've done in terms of bringing us all together. If you'd like to say a few words, please.
First of all, thank you, and thank you to the mayor for sticking with us. The council deliberated on this many, many times, and I want to particularly want to say thank you to the colleagues on the council who worked through this. It was all of us working together that we were able to make this happen. It was a lot of discussions that occurred, And this is really the best deal for taxpayers. It's the best deal for San Diegans. We give our employees some certainty, but we also are able to plan out over the future years for more services, which is really what taxpayers want. They want to see some of those services that have been taken away restored. And I think that this certainty and the budget savings that have been created because of this deal, or that will be created because of this deal, will be a really good thing for San Diegans. So really proud to stand with all of my colleagues and looking forward to when this moves forward to council, and hopefully we'll have unanimous support at council and we'll be able to move forward and achieve significant progress along our stability here as a city to reach the place where we want to be, which is on an upward trend, obviously with revenue increasing, and also with some stability with our costs, and this will provide for that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, David. Again, I want to thank the employee groups for cooperating. They, and frankly, I would have liked to see more increases, but this is a process where it's a give and take on all sides between the unions and the council, within the council. I don't know if MEA or POA would like to say anything. Please, the president of the Municipal Employees Association, Bob, I always get the last name wrong. C-R-O-N-K. It's not a crank. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the City Council. Thank you, Councilman Alvarez. I'd also like to thank our coalition partners, the other labor unions that came together. I think that says a lot for this city, where you can get all 6 labor unions together and come to an agreement. This was a painful negotiation. Most of the people that were involved in it know that, but for those of you that don't believe that it was, but this is an agreement that is more of a compromise, where we'll get some benefits for our employees, but it definitely benefits the city. I want to remind MEA employees that they're going to get to vote to ratify this contract, and they have the final say, and that'll be on June 5th on Wednesday. So thank you very much. Particularly thank you to Ann Smith and Michael Zuquette, who worked so diligently and so hard and poured over the books and just kept plugging away, and they didn't quit. And that's why we're here today. Without them, none of this would have been possible. Thank you very much.
Any questions anybody has? Did we explain the deal good enough? Or?
So $60 million over 3 years. How much for this next fiscal year that begins July 1st?
I mean, it'd be about 25 million in additional in the first fiscal year. 25, 25, 10 is the way the breakdown came. And again, that's in addition to everything we put out in our budget, because obviously we couldn't assume any 5-year deal. And we hope this will be voted on by the SERS board in the coming weeks, and that the July 1st calculation and the next year's calculation will show that $25 million year savings. About $5 million of that, I guess it's 20 in the general fund and 5 in the non-general fund. But I didn't want to get into complications like that. But again, it's the certainty of the 5-year, because, for example, their projections, I think, are based on a 4% salary increase. It's just built into that. By saying it's 1 3/4, 1 3/4, 1 3/4, we achieve savings. Their projections now have a certainty, or their calculations now have a certainty and not a projection, and it brings down the amount of money that we have to pay.
Is part of the $20 million eaten up by the 1.75?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah, not all of it, but a chunk of it, yeah.
Do you know about how much? Or?
Do you know that? This is, again, Scott Chadwick, our Chief Operations Officer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, the 1.75%, all of the increases that are here are non-pensionable salary increases. So there will be no impact. There is no impact for an increase in pensionable pay. So I just really wanted to clarify on that. Of the 20 million, I believe it's, what is it? Is it 14 million that's, how?
9.5 is less than 10 million.
Okay, so 10 million is being used in year one associated with the increases. So there will be 10 million left that council can make a determination on and how they would like to use those funds.
Yeah, so half of the general fund savings will be used for the salary increases, or the compensation increases, I should say. Again, I want to stress, I should have stressed it, thank you, Scott, all of the compensation increases are non-pensionable. So the SERS board can assume no pensionable pay, and even on the reopeners, that is the case. So they're able to come up with these new projections for us. Yes, sir.
I think early on there was discussion of potential savings of $110 million over 5 years. Is that still feasible with these with this back end, with these openers?
Yeah, the savings from the reduced pension payment?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the same.
Is it possible that this structure could lead to $110 million over 5 years? Because you're only talking about 3 years.
Right, theoretically, it's possible. I doubt if that will occur, but theoretically, yes.
And is it fair to call this a 5-year deal when you have all these options and all these?
Well, it's a 5-year deal of non-pensionable pay. That's the key thing that allows us to get those ARC savings. That is, the reopeners only allow increases in non-pensionable pay. It's a pensionable pay freeze for 5 years. That's where we have delivered, really, when it was just a promise of Prop B. I didn't vote for it, but that's what the voters thought they were getting, and I think we've delivered here. And I think the council ought to be proud of that in terms of the savings guaranteed to the voters here.
There's been lots of hints today at just the difficulty behind the scenes in trying to secure this deal. What do you think are what's the actual shot at actually seeing this come forward with a 5-year deal that the city council approves and all the labor unions ultimately go with?
Well, I don't think we'd be here unless we didn't think it was going to be approved. We think the unions, they have to ratify, will ratify it. The board has, the council has approved this in closed session, so we assume it'll be unanimously. So assumed it'll be approved unanimously in open session. I don't see any, again, the council, it took, of course, there's nothing behind the scenes that occurs, but I mean, this was not an easy decision to come up with a unanimous vote. And people like, is Jamie still here? Like President Gloria and Councilman Alvarez were very worked very hard to try to get the council together, and there were times where we had a 4-4 split on whether we should move forward, and yet we came back together at the table to accomplish this. So everybody, I think, had to give something to get here. I mean, nobody got what they wanted, believe me. I don't think any council member would say that. But we got, overall, a really good deal for the city.
Can you talk about the police pay? Because in the first 3 years, they're actually getting less money than every other
Yeah,
employee.
you'll have to ask them, but I think what it looks to me, they decided the trade-off of the guarantee of the on the reopener years. And I think there's some other factors. I don't know if you want to talk about it all. I mean, there's details in there like the way their holiday pay is calculated, and I think they got in the first 3 years. I don't know if you want to comment on that or not. Okay, they'll get a statement on that. There were some other things in the first 3 beside just those gross figures, like all of the unions. There's specific things. There's things specific to their own unions that are also built into this.
So as far as it's take-home pay increase, basically, right? Because nobody's actually getting raises. They're getting reduced health care, reduced furloughs, reduced whatever.
Right, that's correct. And because for example, our pension payment goes down, so does theirs. And so that's more money in the paycheck. That is, they're paying less money toward the pension system also.
The 5 of the 6 unions that are getting the 5.25% compensation increases, would you like to see that hit 6% in these reopener years to make up for what was cut?
I mean, just personally, I thought we should have given back to 6% earlier, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, we will reach, I hope, that 6% as quickly as we can. Yeah.
What happens if the unions that have those option years don't come and reopen? Will they get another, say, 1.75, continue on the track?
No, there's-
Or they'll get no increase that year?
Yeah, there's no increase except that will come out of the negotiations.
Okay, so in 3 years, those unions will definitely be back on the negotiation.
Oh, yeah.
table now.
Yeah, and again, the assumptions here, I think on all sides, every member of the council believes that our projections for revenue increases and for increased budget optimism will allow us to do more for our employees at that point. I mean, there's an assumption built in there that I think that we all have.
How would you like to use the additional money if it does come your way? In the form of the 5-year deals?
Well, we have given the council a budget based on what we call our May revise, and I think what this will do more than anything is allow us to depend less on what they call one-time revenues. That is, instead of taking money, for example, from our public liability fund to pay for our ongoing expenses, we will be able to replace that with this extra money, is what will occur. I think that's the best way to say it. Do you have any comment on that? That is, yeah, go ahead.
And one of the other thing, it provides the city the ability to also address placing any type of money that council desires into the city's reserve policy, because understand that there's 28 million of the current reserve that is potentially exposed to the clawback. So that is something that the city is concerned with. We want to maintain our a healthy city, but then we also want to look at the potential for restoring services.
Let me translate that last one in English. Clawbacks. That's when Faulkner goes after film. No, we expect, because of the change in redevelopment law, that the city will have to make some payments that we thought we didn't. And there's money in our reserve fund to do that. That's mainly the redevelopment issues regarding Convention Center, Petco Park, that kind of thing, that the previous redevelopment agency funded, that they may say the city has to fund. And so that could be as high as $28 million. So that's what we're a little worried about, and this will help backfill that.
Can I give you the council perspective?
Please.
The other perspective is that in the out years, there's still, even though there's some savings achieved, there's still smaller deficits, but deficits nonetheless. And so perhaps a good use of the resources is to keep in reserves, as Scott mentioned, and utilize them for next year. I think that was we wanted to be prudent enough that we achieve savings, but we use it in a way that we could find some stability long term. That's what the whole deal is based on. It's long-term stability and growth going forward.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me, David. For example, our calculation of next year had I'll just say a 9 or 10 or 11 million dollar deficit. This will cover that. So we'll start off with no deficit, which is where we want to be. Thank you for, and each year gets better by our projections. Of course, we don't know the reality, but the second year was another big problem for us, and this will help us bring that down to near zero.